Morning, Kal Kadosh. We're going to continue with Daf Samich Aleph, which is 61, but we are on Samich Amud Bet, just the last line, where the two dots are, where it says, Velo biyachid bizman she'en beraglo makah, which means a man may not come out with a single shoe, a single sandal, a single sandal, when he does not have a makah. Okay? So the Gemara is going to be medayek, Daf Samich Aleph Amud Aleph, and it's going to start like this. Hayesh beraglo makah, nafik. So let's deduce that really be'emet, if the person does have a makah on his foot, he is allowed to get out. Right? So again, one more time. If right now the Mishnah said velo biyachid bizman she'en beraglo makah, that a yachid cannot come out when he doesn't have a makah, mashma, you could deduce from there that if he does have a makah, he could come out with a shoe on his single foot. B'hai minayu nafik. So says the Gemara, with which one of these two feet does he go out with? Does he go out with the one that he has the makah or the other one? So Ravuna says, Be'ota sheyesh b'makah. He puts on like a sandal on the foot that he does have the makah. Okay? Alma kasavar. So you see from here that according to Shitat Ravuna, sandal lishum sa'aravid, that the purpose of the sandal was to protect the foot from tsa'ar, from getting hit, whether it was from a thorn, whether it was from mud, whether it was from stones, and therefore you're allowed to get out with it. Okay, so this is the shita of Ravuna, which means the foot that you had a wound on it, you put on this, right? You put this on, this is a sandal, and then there's not going to be a problem. Second shita, the Chia Barav Aman, Chia Barav says, Be'ota she'en b'makah. He says, no. Really, we're talking about the one that does not have a makah. Alma kasavar. So it comes out that he holds. L'shum ta'anug avid. That it was done for ta'anug. V'zu sheyesh b'makah. And this that you have a makah, makatan mochachat aleh. He says, no, really be'emet, it's for ta'anug, which means that it's made for ta'anug, which means that it's not to protect, but rather it's that it makes it easier to walk. Now, this person that has a makah, the makah is mochiach on it. What does that mean, the makah is mochiach on it? The one that's putting it on, he's showing that he's an istanis, that he wants, right, sandals. So therefore, be'emet, it's a sul for him to go out only when he has one sandal, but that's going to cause people to start thinking that he's carrying the second sandal. Imagine a guy comes, he only has one sandal. What are you going to think? He probably has the other sandal in a bag or in his hand or whatever. So he says, right, or they're going to start laughing at him, and then again, he's going to take it off. However, though, if he has a makah on his foot, so he's allowed to go out, because then people are not going to suspect him, because they're going to see that he's got a makah. That's why he's got this like boot or this like shoe that he has on. Okay? So, V'af Rabbi Yochanan Savalak Lehad Ravuna. Even Rabbi Yochanan held like Ravuna that again it's for tsa'ar, it's not for ta'anug. Ta'amar le Rabbi Yochanan Rav Shimon bar Abba. It says Rabbi Yochanan to Rabbi Shimon bar Abba, Havli misanai, give me my shoe. Yahavli diyamin. So he gave him the right one. Amalei, he tells him, Asito makah. Yeah? You made it as if to say that I have a makah there. But if I'm going to put on the right one first and go out, right, only with this one, it comes out that I have a makah. So therefore, it's ki'ilu that I have a makah on that foot. So you see that Rabbi Yochanan also held that if you have a makah on your foot, you're allowed to put on a shoe or a sandal, even an individual one. You don't have to put the pair, okay? And therefore, he holds like Ravuna. So says the Gemara, why? Maybe he holds a Chia Barav. Now remember, Chia Barav was the one that said that it wasn't because of Tsa'ar, but it was rather because of Ta'anug. Okay, and however, though, when you have, and therefore it's talking about, you're putting it on the shoe, which does not have the makah. So it says, V'chi kamar, now when he says, Asita shel small makah, he said that you mean as if say that the left one was with the makah. So therefore I'm going to have to come out when I'm putting on only the right shoe. Okay? Small, as if that you made, meaning not that you caused me that now I have a makah. Because again, he went and he told him, give me my shoes. He only gave him one. The fact that he only gave him one, it depends which version you're going like, which one had the makah. So if Rabbi Yochanan holds like Ravuna, he's coming and saying, you gave me my right shoe only, you made me a makah on my right foot. And then he's going like Ravuna, because you have to put on the shoe on the one that has the makkah, because he's only putting on one. However, though, if you're going to tell me that he holds like Chia Barav, so then it comes out that when you gave him the right shoe, he's telling him, you made my left foot have a makkah, because it's always on the other one. So therefore, ask the Gemara, why do you say that Rabbi Yochanan holds like Ravuna? Maybe he holds like Chia Barav. Okay, makes sense or not? Okay, ואז the Rabbi Yochanan l'tameh, and Rabbi Yochanan is going according to his reasoning. Damar Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan, kitfilin kach minalin. Just like you have your tefillin, that's how you tie your shoes as well. Matfilin bismolo bismol, just like the tefillin, you put it on your left hand. Af minalin bismol. So too with closing the na'alaim, with tying them up together, your shoes, you have to do the left one first, and that's how we paskin alachal maaseh. Which means, obviously we're talking about righties, right? Not lefties, because lefties do the opposite. But what are you supposed to do? For righties, you put on your right shoe, and then you put on your left shoe. Then you tie the left shoe, just like you tie the tefillin on the left arm, and then you tie the right shoe. Okay? So that's how we actually paskin alachal maaseh. So Meitve, so they're going to ask now the following question. Keshehu noel shel yamin ve'achar kach noel shel smol. When you put it on, you put on first the right shoe, and then you put on the left shoe. Okay? So this is a braita mefurash that when you're putting, okay, again, keshu noel is not tying it, it's putting it on, so that's not going to be the question. Right? But the question that he's asking is, here it's written mefurash, you first put on the right, then you put on the left. Amar Rav Yosef, hashta d'tanya hachi, now that you just taught that, so fine, Amar Rabbi Yochanan hachi, David hachi avad, uDavid hachi avad. Whichever one you do, you're okay, because you have what to rely on. However, the Gemara says, how could that be? Amar le Abaye says, Dilma Rabbi Yochanan hamatznitin lo avishvile. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan didn't hear this braita. The avishvile lo hadarbe. Maybe bemet if he would have heard it. Lo hadarbe. Maybe he wouldn't have retracted, right? Which means lo hadarbe meaning what? He wouldn't have retracted. For sure, he would have retracted. The nami shmiali. Or even we're going to say that maybe bemet he did hear the braita because somebody held it in halakha kiota mishnah. So says the Gemara, no, you're right. This is the way you're supposed to do it. Amar Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak, Yiresh Shamayim Yitzed Yiresh Tehem. Right, you're going to be Yitzed Chova both the Braita and Rabbi Yochanan. So again, Rabbi Yochanan said you do the left first and then the right. The Braita said you do the right first and then the left. Right? Even though, because he used the same lashon of minalim. That's why. But because I was just saying right away, I told you it was to do with the time. Right? Just like the tefillin, it's the time. But however, though, they use the same language of minalim. Minalim is like to close it. So that's what it was a stira. So he says, Umanu, and who is the Sireh Shamayim? More Bered Ravina. So how do you put both together? That you're first doing the right and then the left and then the left and then the right. How do you put them together? So says the Gemara, Sayem dimina velo katar. You put on first the right one and you don't tie it. The Sayem dismale, and then you put on the left one, the katar, and you tie the left one. And then you tie the right one. Okay? Make sense? So that's like we said, what was halal maaseh. Just like this, the shalev, this compromise between the Braita and Rabbi Yochanan, which is a Yiresh Shamayim. Okay, let's say the Chovashtem. So Amar Ravashi says, Chazin Rav Kahana v'lo kapi. I saw Rav Kahana and he wasn't makpid at all. Okay? So basically, sometimes he would do right, sometimes he would do left. Okay, fine. Next. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita. Here there's a machloket. What was the shitat of Rav Kahana? Because it could be that according to Rav Kahana, he held that be'emet there was no machloket, and therefore you could do whichever one you want. That was one shita. The Bach says it's not true. Okay, fine. Next. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita. Keshu noel shel yamin. When you put on the right one first, and then afterwards on the small. Keshu choletz, when you take it off, choletz shel small, choletz shel yamin. You take off the left, and then you take off the right. So when you're putting it on, you always put on the right. When you're taking it off, you're always taking off the left. Keshu rochetz, when you take a shower, rochetz shel yamin, small. you wash your right side of the body and then your left side of the body. Kishusach, when you're anointing with oil. Again, shel yamin, and then afterwards, shel small. And if you want to do your entire body, you do the top, the head first. This melech al kol ha'evarim, because he is the king of all the limbs, and therefore you always do the king first. So, and by the way, you should know that's halacha by even getting dressed, right? If you're getting dressed after the shower, first comes the kippah. The kippah is on the head, which is the melech. And then afterwards comes, right, the rest of your body. And again, you always do the right and then the left. Okay? Next. We're talking about the tefillin. A person is not supposed to go out with tefillin on Shabbat. Okay, until here, everyone with me?
Yes.
Very good. Baruch Hashem. So we said, velo tefillin. So you're not allowed to go out with tefillin on Shabbat. So Amar Rav Safra says, lo teima liba de mandamar, the Shabbat lazim tefillin, who we're not talking about according to the mandamar that says that it's not zman tefillin, which means that you're not supposed to put tefillin on Shabbat, because then for sure you're not supposed to go out with tefillin. Ela afilu lemandamar sheshabbat zman tefillin. But even according to the mandamar that it is time for tefillin on Shabbat, which means you're allowed to put on tefillin on Shabbat, lo yitzeh, you still shouldn't put it on. Why? Maybe you're going to take it off, right? And you're going to carry it for a mot in Reshut Rabim. Right? But some people teach this on the Seifa. However, if you already went out on Shabbat with the tefillin, you're not going to be chayav chatat. Amar Rav Safra says, that's only if you hold according to the Manda Amar that Shabbat is man tefillin. But according to the Manda Amar that Shabbat is not man tefillin, eno chayav chatat, you're not going to be chayav chatat. Right? He says that that means basically you're never going to be chayav chatat. My time, what's the reasoning? Derech malbush avida, but at the end of the day it's a malbush. Meaning, even if you're going to hold that it's asur to put on tefillin on Shabbat, the fact that you put on the tefillin like a clothing, you're not going to be chayav on the tefillin. I was asur to put it on, doesn't matter, but it's you put it like a clothing. And the fact that you put it on the clothing, so therefore you're not going to be chayav. Okay? You're not allowed to put on an amulet if it doesn't come, if it's not a mumche, which means that it's not 100% test worthy or whatever you want to call it exactly, that it actually works to cure people. So Amar Papa says, Lo tema de mumche gavra mumche kviya. We don't need that the gavra has to be mumche and the kamiya has to be mumche, which means there are two concepts. Do we judge on the amulet, that this amulet cured 3 different people? Or do we judge on the person that wrote it? The person that wrote it, he wrote amulets that cure different people. So he says over here, we do not need that it has to be that it's a mumche, the gavra, the person writing it, that he knows how to write kamiyot, nor the actual kamiya, the actual amulet. Ela kevan de mumche gavra, but rather since it's mumche gavra, which means since this person became fixed, that he knows how to write kimiyot, right? I mean, he knows how to write these different kimiyot and everything. Even though he wasn't mumche, which means if you know that this person knows how to write incredible kamiyas, amulets, and they know how to heal people, so even though he just wrote this kamiya, it's a new kamiya, you're allowed to use it. Why? It wasn't mumche the kamiya. Yeah, but it was mumche the gavra. It was the person that became mumche. Daikanami diktani, you could also deduce it from the Mishnah. Because it says in the Mishnah, velo bekamiya bizman sheno mumche. Not on the kamiya if it's not mumche. Velo katani, but we didn't learn bizman sheno mumche, which means that it's not mumche, which again, the Dikduk Lashon is teaching you that it's not that the kamiya is mumche, but rather mina mumche. Okay, which means that it's through a person that's mumche. So Shema Mina, we learn from here that be'emet, this is actually correct. That means any kamua, any kamiya, any amulet, which was written by a person that's an expert in writing amulets, even though the amulet itself was not tested, the fact that he became a mumche in writing amulets to cure people, that's already enough. Okay, you don't need anything else. Okay? So Tanu Rabbanan, we are going to learn the right now. Ezu kamiya mumche. So now we just tackled the concept of the person being mumche. So as long as the person is mumche, it's already enough. Now the question is, what does it mean when we're talking about the kamiya mumche? What is a kamiya mumche? So it says the Gemara, Kol shelipa v'shana v'shilesh. It has to be that it cured 3 different people. If it cured 3 different people, obviously, how did it cure if you're not putting it on? We're talking about during the weekday, which means if they put it on during the weekday and it cured 3 different people, so now on Shabbat, you would also be able to go out with this. Okay, but it has to be 3 different people, right? Ripeh, Shana, Veshilesh. You were Refuah Shlema once, Shana, it's 2nd time like a Chazara, Veshilesh in a 3rd time. Echad Kamiyah Shel Ktav, Ve'echad Kamiyah Shel Ikarim. Doesn't matter whether the Kamiyah was of Shorashim, of a Tzimche Refuah, or written. Means sometimes they used to put a Kamiyah, which was with names of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and all these different types of things. You know, hocus pocus, they do all these things. That's one type of a Kamiyah. Another Kamiyah was out of Ikarim. Ikarim are the Shorashim, the roots of different plants and everything. So it was meant to heal. So that there's no difference. Also, it doesn't matter whether the person is a cholesh sheyesh bo sakana or not. But not that it already had or not only if he already got the choli, he's allowed to go out, but rather even in order that he doesn't become sick, that's also permitted. Meaning even as a preventative, not only if the person's already mamash hit and he's already got the choli and all these things that he's allowed to, right? This is usually the machalata nefila. Machalata nefila usually is like epilepsy, where they just like faint on the spot, you know, without any, epilepsy. That means if he's allowed to go out with it, but even with somebody that's not nichpa, also he's allowed to go with it. You're allowed to tie it, right, and open it up even in a shut rabim. We're not going to suspect that you're going to be mitaltel for amot. Why not? I'm not sure. Tosut, okay. Above. As long as you're not going to tie it with a tzamid or a tabat, with a bracelet or a ring, and go out with it in the Reshut Rabim because of marit ayin. Which means if you're going to go out with a kamiyah, which is tied to a tzamid or a tabat, and not on the body, it looks like you're using it as a tachshit, as an adornment instead of a refuah. And then if you're going to do that, it's going to be a sur, because then we're going to suspect. Right? However, though, if you're doing it for the machala, it's going to be permitted. Okay? So, Samechalef Amubet, yeah? So, ask the Gemara, Ve'atanya, we learned in the Braita, Ezu kol kamiyah mumche. What is kamiyah mumche? Kol shelipa shlosha bnei adam ke'echad. He says, 1 second, I thought it's mefurash in the Braita that the kamiyah that has to be mumche is only after you did 3 people, 3 different people. The first Braita is mashma, right? That it's enough. Shelipe shelosh pamim, mashma, it's the same person. Right? Which means when you said it has to cure, that has to cure 3 different bodies or the same person 3 different times. So says the Gemara, la kasha, it's not a question. Halam chuye gavra, valam chuye kamiyah. He says when we're talking about the person that's writing the kamiyah, right? So in order for him to be considered, right? So therefore the person has to write 3 kamiyot, that it has to be 3 different people. It cannot be the same person. It has to cure 3 different people. But when we're talking about the kamiyah, right, it's enough 3 times, right, even the same person. Understood? So for the human being, to make him an expert in writing kamiyahs, you need that he cured 3 different people. But to do the actual kamiyah in itself, and then the second that he cured 3 different people, he could write a kamiyah. And even though it's the first time that this kamiyah is working, it's okay, because it's a mumche gavra. It's a mumche gavra. The gavra was a mumche. The person was a mumche. However, though, when we're trying to learn on this kamiyah, if this kamiyah cured this person, that's only once. Right? Even if it cured the same person if it cured the same person 3 times, it's okay. And why? Because it's on the kamiyah in itself. I don't care about the person. Okay, so Amar of Papa says, Pshita li, it's obvious to me. Tzilat kamiyah li tzilat gavre. Right? If it's going to be 3 different kamiyahs to 3 different people, okay, tlata zimne, and each one was 3 different times, itmache gavra v'itmache kamiyah. For sure, both of them became experts. The kamiyah and the person. Because at the end of the day, right, it was 3 kamiyahs to 3 different people. So you have both. You have the 3 different people, plus you have the 3 different kamiyahs. So even though the 3 different kamiyahs, each kamiyah cured the same person 3 times, both of them became experts. The Kamiya became expert because it cured 3 times, even though it's the same person. And the person became an expert because it was 3 different people. So therefore, they both became experts at the same time. Okay? Itmache gavra v'itmache Kamiya. Tzlata Kamiya letata gavra. But if you have 3 different Kamiyas, yeah? 3 different Kamiyas for 3 different people. Chad zimna. And each one only worked once. So then the person became an expert. Gavra itmache. The person became an expert. It was 3 different people. And it cured them. But the Kamiya, each Kamiya did not become an expert because it only cured once. Chad Kamiya litlat gavra. It was the same Kamiya given to 3 different people. So you have the 1 Kamiya and 3 different people used it. So Kamiya itmiche. So then the Kamiya became an expert, but the person did not become an expert because he didn't write 3 it was the same Kamiya. It wasn't 3 different people that he wrote different Kamiyas to. Okay? So now the Gemara says, Rav Papa comes and he asks, Tlata Kamiya lechad gavre. What happens if you have 3 Kamiyas to the same person? Meaning this person used 3 different Kamiyas. Okay? For 3 different types of machalot. Okay? And he became cured. What do we say? Kamiya v'dailo. For sure the Kamiya did not become an expert because every single Kamiya was for a different thing. And it was only used once. Okay? Gavra itmacher, but was a Gavra itmacher or not? Why? Because at the end of the day, when he wrote it, it was to 1 person. It was 3 different machalot in the same person, and each one was a different Kamiya, but it wasn't 3 different bodies. So miyamnina do we say ha'asila le? At the end of the day, it did cure him from the 3 different types of machalot. Or dilmar do we say mazala dai gavra odeka mekabel ktava? That it's only the mazal of this person that he accepts this writing. So it's only his mazal. So it's not different mazalot. It's not different people. So therefore, it's not a tmuche gavra. So we don't have an answer on this question. This question we don't have an answer. Okay? Next, Ibailahu. So they're going to ask the following question. Keme'in. We're talking about a kamiya. Yesh b'en mishum kiddusha, or din b'en mishum kiddusha. Do we have kiddusha, or don't we have kiddusha? When a kamiya, since the kamiya has many times, as I mentioned, sukim and shemot HaKodesh, does it have kiddusha or doesn't have kiddusha? So obviously we're going to ask what's the nafkamina. We know what's the nafkamina going to be. What's the nafkamina, whether it has kiddusha or not? Ilema, if you're going to tell me it's latzlinu mipnei to save it when it catches on fire, which means that if right now something will caught fire, let's say the chatzir, so I'm allowed to save it, but it's like kitvei HaKodesh, anything which is holy scriptures, I'm allowed to save it on Shabbat and take it out of the chatzir and make sure that it doesn't get burnt. Okay? Tashema, we already learned, habrachot v'kmin, afal pi sheish ben otiyot, the brachot, names of Hashem, which they wrote down, or kmin, even though it has names of Hashem and psukim ma'aninot arbem b'shuvat Torah, mufurash in the Torah, and matzlinu you're not allowed to save it because of the fire. And nisrafim, and they just have to be burnt in kuman in the place, which means you're not allowed to save it. You're not allowed to take it out. Ela, but rather to do the geniza, which means do you have to put it in geniza because it has different shemot and different things like that. So Tashema, we're going to bring a proof. Haya katuv al yedot hakelim v'al kirya mita. What happens if you have one of the names of a Kadosh Baruch Hu on one of the handles of a utensil or on a bedpost? So it says here, you're not allowed to just stop use it, and you're not allowed to throw it out. Ela yagod, you have to take that part, you need to put it in geniza, which means that you're not allowed to just throw it out. You would have to cut out that part or whatever. You would have to take that part and put it in geniza. Okay? So says the Gemara, okay, ela but rather, likanes b'hem bebet hakiseh. So again, to do the geniza, for sure it needs geniza. To do with saving it from the fire, you have to leave it there and has to burn. So what's the nafkamina then, whether it has kiddusha or not? So says the Gemara, ela likanes b'hem bebet hakiseh. You let to go with this amulet to the washroom. Right? What's the halacha? Yesh b'hem kiddusha v'asir. Does it have kiddusha, and therefore you're not allowed to go into the washroom with it? Or din b'hem kiddusha v'shani. Maybe it doesn't have kiddusha. You're allowed to go into the washroom. So Tashma, we're going to learn in a braita. Velo bekamiya bizman she'eno min hamumche. You're not allowed to go with a kamiya when it's not from a mumche. Ha min hamumche, but if it is from the mumche, nafik, you're allowed to go out on the Reshut Rabin. V'ya marta, now if you're going to tell me, Kimin yeshven kiddusha, that it does have kiddusha, zinin the mitzvah b'kiseh. What happens if you have to go to the washroom? Remember, the washrooms were in the public properties. They were in the fields. So imagine you right now went into the public property. Now you have to go to the washroom, and you have the kamiyah on. So sometimes you're going to have to go to the washroom, and then you're going to have to start carrying it for Amot and Reshut Rabim. So answers the Gemara, what are we dealing with? No, you're right. There, when we said you're allowed to go out in the public, we couldn't have been talking about with the names of Hashem. Because if it has the names of Hashem, you're not allowed to go into the washroom with it. And if you can't go into the washroom, how do you do? Maybe I'm going to suspect you're going to take it off and carry it in Reshut Rabim. So he says, no, we're talking about that they're made out of shorashim, out of like different herbs, right, and medicines. But they're not names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, that's why there's no problem of going out with it and coming in with it in the washroom. So says the Gemara, 1 second. Vatanya, we learned in a Braita, right? Vatanya, sorry, we learned it in a Braita. What is the kamiyah mumcha that you're allowed to go out on Shabbat? Echad kamiyah shel ktav, echad kamiyah shel ikarim. So here it says, I don't understand you. How could that be? Here it's written in Furash that you're allowed to go out on Shabbat if it's from a mumche, whether it's of ktav or from ikarim, whether it's written down in the names of Hashem, or even if it's made out of shorashim. So therefore, how do we do it with the washroom? Okay? Elach ma'eskina, he says, you're right. What are we dealing with? It's a cholesh sheish bo sakana, which means since he's got a sakana, even if you take off the kamiyah for a few minutes, he could drop dead. He could die. So therefore what? It's allowed for him to go into the washroom because of pikuach nefesh, even with the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on the amulet, because of pikuach nefesh. So says the Gemara, Vatanya, echad cholesh echad shebuzah. I said, one second, I thought it was brought in Braita, the exact same halachot. That means it doesn't matter whether it's a cholesh sheish bo sakana and sakana, has the same halachot. So here, how can you tell me that we're only dealing with the cholesh sheish bo sakana? Here it says even if it's a cholesh she'en bo sakana. So says the Gemara, no, you're right. Elakevan the Maseh, since the kamiyah healed him, even if he's going to carry it in his hand, it's still permitted. Why? Because then it's considered like a tachshit lachole. So even though it has kedusha and he has to take it off, Chachamim do not suspect that he's going to move it for a mot and Reshut Rabim, because even if he did so, it's not chayav chatat because it's like a tachshit. It's like an adornment because it healed him. So the fact that he healed him, it's like part of his clothing. Okay? And then again, we're going to start asking with Tani Roshia that as long as you're not going to take it in your hand and go for a mot and Reshut Rabim, and then, we're going to have to actually answer different things as well. Okay, so with this, we finish today's daf. Right? It's actually a very short daf today.